games and adult situations. Viewer discretion is advised.
No! No! No!
This is the RowdCAST. It's where I talk about what I want, when I want, however the fuck I want, and you can't do nothing about it, because this is the goddamn internet.
What the fuck is the internet?
First of all, dude, you don't have an accent. Secondly, this is a fucking show dog with fucking papers. You can't board it, it gets upset. Its hair falls out.
Walter.
Fucking dog has fucking papers. Over the line!
Fuck it, I'm about to graduate. You should be sucking on my ball sack.
Oh man, that's cold! I'm a maniac on the floor, and I'm dancing like I've never danced before.
You are now entering the RowdCAST, an online internet radio show brought to you weekly by me, your host, Rowdy Radloff, coming live from Belleville, Ohio. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Belleville, Ohio. Yeah. Little fuck up there. A little bit of some feedback coming through the microphone. I don't like that shit. Welcome to the show, you crazy sons of bitches. There's only one RowdCAST, and we are live. Bellevue, Ohio. In the lab, in the studio, doing my thing on a Sunday night, 8 p.m. Trying to squeeze it in right before the Walking Dead finale starts. Because The Walking Dead comes back this week, and if you're a big Walking Dead fan like me, you're not going to want to miss it. So we got to get the RowdCAST in before that. Hope that you joined me on Thursday when I had my guest, Jake Bollinger, on with me. It was really cool having Jake on and hearing, how intelligent he is and how focused he is on the bills that are going to be passed, or hopefully we'll be voting on this November. So I thought that was a good episode. I got a lot of great feedback about it. So I'm hoping to have Jake back again, soon. Definitely get him on the show. He was a blast to have, and dude's funny as shit. If you're listening to me live, you know that you can chat. If you're on Spreaker.com, you can go in. We have a chat. I can chat live with you while we're doing the show. I like doing that. I like when people are interactive while we are live. So you can do that. You can message me on Facebook, because I usually have my tablet here and I can, talk to people or whatever. Also, phone line will be open. Prefer at the end of the show, I'll ask if there's any questions or anything. People can call in. It's 678-209-6564. 678-209-6564. And you can call in, and you'll be live on the air with me, and we can talk, and you can ask questions, or you can give me feedback, or do whatever the fuck you want to do. Doesn't matter. So let's get into the show. I always thank you guys, all the fans, everybody that stands by me. I appreciate you all. Couldn't do it without you. Everybody, just going out last night and, seeing a bunch of people I haven't seen in a long time, and just so many people are just like, oh, dude, I love your podcast. Or I just started checking your podcast out, dude. It's the shit. And I love hearing that, because I do this because I enjoy doing it, but I also do it because I know a lot of other people enjoy hearing it. And I'm a weird cat, man. I'm a creative cat, and I like to speak my mind, and everything I say is not I'm never saying that everything that I say on the RowdCAST is 100% the truth, or it's, set in stone and that's how it's going to be and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's not how I think. I I've said this before. There's a lot of black and white things. Everybody thinks everything's black or white. Well, to most issues, there's a gray area. It's not always black or white. There's a gray. There's a like a middle part, where they meet, where things mesh together, and that's how I see a lot of things in the world. I see that gray part, and I see that maybe one side's not 100% correct, and the other side's not 100% correct, but there's somewhere in the middle there, and there's some crazy facts or statistics that people don't usually hear or listen to, and I think they need to hear that. So that's where I come in, and that's where the RowdCAST comes in. It's my opinion of issues that I think that are interesting to me. What I'm going to talk about tonight, the fracking industry. Just for the last 2 or 3 hours, I sat here and just researched it and was watching, reading articles and watching, YouTube videos of people out there and just listening, reading stories and listen to people that are experiencing things and stuff. And that's interesting to me. I enjoy that. So I want to share that information with you. And I hope that you enjoy it also. I heard some other crazy shit before I even get into the other stuff. Something I just learned that, this was just crazy. A friend last night was telling me about, this is something that I'd like to do a show on. They used to have in, I think it was New Zealand or Australia or something over there, they'd take these African people from the jungle and they'd put them in cages, and they had real human zoos where people would go and they would pay money to see these humans caged up, and they'd feed them like black people, and they'd feed them bananas and stuff. It's so racist. One of the craziest things I've ever heard. I've never heard of this in my life, but people zoos are real, and I definitely want to. I'd like to have my buddy on because he knew more about it than I could. But that's one of the fun things about doing this. So I have people come to me and say, "Oh, dude, you should do an episode on this," and tell me some crazy thing, and I start looking it up, and I'm like, "Wow, that is pretty crazy." And some people I just look at like they're fucking retards because they are. So what's going on in the news? What's big right now? I know we had after that fucking guy, they burnt that ISIS pilot. They put him in a cage and they burned him alive. And I think they expected to kind of scare him, kind of scare the other neighboring countries, and they didn't. They did the opposite of that. Jordan's been fucking bombing the shit out of them, and just said they're sending in ground troops. I heard now too. So they kind of went like fucking Hail Mary at the ISIS. They're just bombing Syria, where these ISIS people are supposed to be hiding. They're fucking shit up. So, that's been pretty interesting. Trying to think. There's this Brian Williams, the news anchor man. Everybody knows him. If you don't, you may not know his name, but you know his face and you know his voice, and he's been, of our generation, he's been a pretty big news anchor for a long time. He does the nightly news, what Dan Rather used to do. He got in trouble because he made a claim that when he was over in Iraq or something, a helicopter he was in got hit by an RPG and it went down. Well, somebody that was in that helicopter with him called bullshit on it. They said, that's fucking bullshit. We didn't get hit by an RPG. One of the other helicopters that was in their fleet or something did, but it wasn't them. And he kind of called him out on it. So they, it kind of became this big thing in the media, and he kind of took a step back. He wasn't reporting for, I think, couple days. And he said, I'm a big part of the news, and if I'm on the news right now, then I shouldn't be doing this. And now they're launching an investigation. NBC, I think, is who he works for. ABC, I think it's NBC. They're launching an investigation back at his stuff, and now I hear they're saying there's other things that he said that weren't exactly truths, that he kind of exaggerated things. Like Hurricane Katrina, he said that he seen bodies floating down the streets and stuff, and they said that he had pretty much was in the Ritz-Carlton hotel in a nice part of the French Quarter, and he wasn't out in the danger and stuff like that, so that they think that's exaggerated too, and they're just kind of picking apart his news. And, I really like the guy. I think he's done solid work, but if you're making news up and you're making things up, then is that really news? I mean, I'm sure he's not the only person to ever do that. I'm sure any news anchor, if they had a chance to fabricate something or, tell a little lie, a little white lie, or, fishtail to make it sound a little bit bigger or badder, I'm sure they would. I think the guy's done good work, so I think that kind of being, I think there's more important things in the world than to fucking pick this dude apart, is my thoughts on the whole ordeal, I guess. Other things, there was in Cairo, Egypt, a soccer game, like a fucking giant riot, went down, and it looked like, let me see what, I want to say like 19 people were killed, trampled, and, there was fires, they were burning shit, lighting shit up. 19 people died in a soccer riot, a bunch of soccer hooligans and stuff. Man, dude, they don't play these fucking soccer games. How many riots have we had at NFL games? And we think we're pretty badass, Browns fans are pretty fucking badass, but we're not rioting and killing 19 people, so maybe we're not as badass as we think we are. There's just a few things that I've seen and caught my eye skimming through the news. And you know how I feel about news. It is what it is. I try not to stick my nose. If you just watch, if you watch CNN all day, you get immersed in it. You can sit there and watch it all day, and it's again, a lot of the stuff is the stuff that you really need to know or really should care about. I don't believe so. I think if it's a lot of filler and stuff to fill your brain with junk, and so you don't focus on the real issues at hand. So saying that, speaking of that, something that I wanted to get into, and I think before I've touched on the fracking industry, I think I've definitely, touched on it in some of the other RowdCasts that I've done, because I think it's a big deal. I think, and I do hear a lot of people say, about the RowdCast and say things to me, that my views are biased or my thoughts are biased and that it's crap, or that I'm only looking at one side of the things. No, I'm looking at every side of it, but statistics are statistics. Facts are facts. When you have scientists and geologists and these kind of guys throwing this information out there and saying this, I think it needs to be talked about, and people need to listen and do their own research and read and fact check. I mean, honestly, there's the good stuff that's out there, and I believe some of it, maybe some of it does get blown out of proportion, but you have to also remember that these oil executives, these people that are doing the fracking, have an unlimited amount of money, an unlimited bank account. So they can pay people they can put the marketing out there. They can say that all this stuff's lies and blah, blah, because they got big plans. And if everybody's not on the fracking train and everybody's not aboard, that's going to fuck these plans all up. But with that being said, let's get into it. So, if you don't know what fracking is, here's a little brief little bio or a little information. Hydraulic fracking is a 6-year-old technology. In the 1940s, oil and gas companies learned that pressurized water, sand, and chemicals could be injected into shale formation to loosen the shale and release gas and oils. The chemicals dissolve minerals and they kill bacteria, and the sand props open fractures in the shale so that the gas or oil can be released and we can get it out of the ground, deep down in there, and out of the minerals and stuff. In the 1990s, oil engineers in Texas began combining fracking techniques with horizontal drilling using higher volumes of pressurized water and chemical cocktails to release natural gas trapped in shale formations that hadn't ever been reachable through vertical drilling. This is, it's been around for a long time, but they've learned a new way of doing this. And that's where we're at now. So, the one thing that I'm going to say before I say anything. So in the 1990s, these Texas engineers, and they learned a new way of doing it. Well, if you want to know who pioneered fracking, who is the big company behind it and put the big bucks into it to get it to where it is, I have one name for you. And you've heard the name before. I bet you couldn't guess. Halliburton, who Dick Cheney was the CEO of. They pioneered fracking. That's kind of creepy. Isn't it weird how Halliburton has so many ties to all this stuff? I mean, things that you just couldn't even imagine. I mean, you look back at when the BP oil spill happened and stuff, and they were saying that Halliburton owned that oil rig, and they were trying to cover things up and getting rid of information and destroying evidence and stuff. The stuff with the Iraq War. I found that little tidbit. It kind of shocked me, but in a way it didn't shock me. But yeah, they're the ones that pioneered and got in the 1990s, really put the money into it and got it to be accepted and to be done. Where we live right now in Ohio and Pennsylvania and New York, there's these pockets of gas and that they're trying to get out, that they use the fracking for. There's one that we live on. It's the biggest one. I believe it's the biggest one in the whole United States. And it's called the Marcellus Shale. There's enough gas underneath us that they want to get out to supply every house in the U.S. for 14 years, just in this little shale that's in our surrounding states. And that's saying every state. Not just those states. Every state in the whole every house in the whole United States could supply for 14 years on natural gas. They have a plan that 3,000 to 5,000 wells, between 3,000 and 5,000 wells every year for the next 30 years, just in Pennsylvania. That's what their plans are to do. You understand what I'm saying when I say they have big plans here. And they can't let anything fuck that up. You have all these people that their ponds are ruined. Some spill or some. When they do this, they shoot this pressurized water into the ground, and the chemical stuff, the water that comes back up, that's full of radioactive material and stuff that's in the ground, and salt, high salt concentrations and stuff. It's too much sodium, you can kill somebody. You can cause a lot of damage, but radioactive waste too. So they get all this that comes back up, and what do they do with it? They got to get rid of it. And, some of the things I'm reading is in Pennsylvania, they test all the wastewater before you can dump water, it has to be tested for radioactive material or poisons and bacteria. And what they do is they take this wastewater and they get it on a big truck and they ship it to New York, because New York doesn't have laws where they test the wastewater, and they dispose of it in New York because they can get away with it. And they're doing this. This is going on. This isn't some fabrication. This isn't made up. They're doing this because they know how to get around the laws. And it's not just that. It's I'm sorry, I'm getting so worked up I get stuck in a thought. It's not just that shit. It's uranium and radon. And if you don't know what radon, I mean, in the home inspections, I test for radon, and a lot of people don't understand what radon is. Radon is a invisible radioactive gas that, from decaying matter and plants and animals that are in the ground and minerals and stuff. When it decays, there's gas that comes out, and it's around you all the time, and you're probably breathing it in. But if your concentration levels are super high and you're exposed to it at a high amount, like inside a house, you have a crack in your floor in your finished basement every day, breathing that in. They think that they're pretty positive that it causes lung cancer. You have tons of people that die from lung cancer, never smoked a day in their life. Well, they pretty much lived in their basement, and they had super high radon levels. These are still studies that are not perfected, but this is what I test for. I test for radon, and when they're shooting all this high pressured water and stuff into the ground, they're releasing radon and uranium and radium and stuff, into the soil and into the atmosphere that they don't need to, And I hear a lot of people's thing about fracking is, we need to stop leaning on other countries and use our own resources and gather our own resources and use them all up. And I agree, because if you have enough in one little pocket, we have enough energy to supply every house energy for 14 years in the whole United States. That's a big deal. But another thing is, for the longest time, oil companies, Bush passed this law that protected them because Bush was a big fucking into oil. He was a fucking oil tycoon, the Bush family. He had a law passed specifically so that these companies that are fracking, the chemicals in the solution, these cocktails of chemicals that they shoot into the ground, they didn't have to tell anybody what they were using. It was a law that they didn't have to disclose the chemicals that were being used. It's like, why would you not want somebody to know what the hell exactly they're using or shooting into this ground? They just started. I want to say in the last couple of years now that they have to disclose the certain chemicals that are being used and how much pressure and that kind of stuff. So we're getting more information now, and I think that's why people are getting more alarmed right now. And if you look at like Europe is all over. They're banning fracking. They're saying no way. Like France and Bulgaria, they have the largest shale gas reserves in Europe, and they've banned it. They said no way. They said no, don't bring it here. You're not tapping into anything here. We're not doing the fracking. So we know what causes. We're not doing it. And if you look at the U.S. and you look at a lot of other countries when it comes to things that we drink and food that we eat and consume and put in our body, a lot of countries they don't let their citizens have the kind of stuff that we do. A lot of the stuff slips through the cracks for Americans. We're allowed to have certain things that other countries say is not good for their people to have. The chemicals and detergents that are used in the water to dissolve minerals and kill bacteria, they can contaminate people's water supplies. And that's some of these stories and stuff I watch. This guy, when they're handling, some of these people that are handling these chemicals and stuff, they have spills, and they wreck a truck or something and it spills, or they're not handling it properly, and a little bit gets in it. This is highly radioactive, highly toxic chemicals. This guy, he said he bought this, had all this land, a big pond, stocked full of fish and all kinds of wildlife and turtles and frogs. He said that they had a spill of chemicals they were using to frack. It got washed down the hill into his pond and into his, his soil and stuff. Everything died in the pond. This was 2 years ago. There's still no life in his pond. His pond is contaminated. It's done. Nothing can grow in it. His water supply contaminated. He's not supposed to drink it. Not supposed to shower in it. Can't. He said this house and this land that I had. This was everything. He said this was my dream. This was everything I wanted. He said, and now everything's ruined. He said because of this, because of fracking and people not being responsible with the chemicals and spilling. The drilling, it can let pockets of methane gas out. And methane gas is highly flammable. It can cause explosions. And that's real reality. There's a great documentary. And some people would say it's a biased documentary. But it's a guy that starts seeing people, he's in Pennsylvania, or New York somewhere. He starts seeing that the people around him, they're starting to frack, and people's water and stuff's getting messed up. So he kind of goes on a quest across the country to talking to people in different states that are dealing with this and having problems. And there's people that can light their water on fire. They're being told by these oil companies and executives that it's fine to drink. There's no problem in drinking it. But they can go to the faucet, pour a glass, and light it on fire with a lighter. And they telling them it's fine. So the methane that's a real fear. You're releasing explosive gas. And what I was saying, the water that's returned contains radioactive matter and high concentrations of salt. If it's not disposed correctly, it can cause serious harm to people or the environment. And there's been times where it's like a brine. It's so high with salt and sodium that they take it and they inject them into these injection wells deep into the ground. And that's another problem that we have. These chemical injection wells that they've been doing for years and years and years. That shit's got to go somewhere. You don't bury your problem. It's always going to come up, right? It's like you take your skeletons, and you bury your skeletons. Well, sooner or later, somebody's going to find them. So, but what they were saying is when they inject this brine of these large salt concentrations and radioactive in these injection wells, and there's been rare cases where they've triggered small earthquakes. When we're shooting stuff into our ground and there's tectonic plates and we're putting pressure and all kinds of shit in there, I don't think that's a good idea. And obviously, if there's times where there's been earthquakes that are happening because of it, that's a serious issue. I'm getting real fired up about this. One thing that they say, though, is the methane gas, that's released. Usually what they do is they'll vent it off and they burn it and burn all that extra gas off. Well, burning it is causing global climate change. These are greenhouse gases that are released in the atmosphere, and they're not good. But this is one thing that I have read. They said that the burning of this and the emittance of this greenhouse gas is still safer than burning coal. So that's, when you look at that as, a pro, not so much a negative thing, that it is safer for our atmosphere than burning, black coal. It's not, the shale gas emits half of the carbon dioxide per unit as coal. Coal burning also releases metals such as mercury into our atmosphere. That'll, eventually they burn up in the atmosphere and then they come back down. And it's mercury in our water and our soil, which, in that case, it sounds like shale gas is it's the way to go over coal burning. But there has to be more regulations. There needs to be more restrictions and stuff instead of giving these guys a free pass because they're the oil company. Because we do need oil. Oil and gas, natural gas is something that's super, super important for us. We have to restrict these guys. This is one of my biggest problems is they a couple years back they came up with this new bill. It was the Clean Water Drinking Act or something like that. I think it's the Clean Water Drinking Act or something. I think Bush passed it or something. But what it is if anybody contaminates your water, building something or does something and they fuck your water up, they have to be held responsible for it. So that being said, there's one thing on there. There's always a loophole, right? Gas companies omit from it. They can't be charged. They can't be held responsible for contaminating someone's water supply. Anybody else can, but the gas company cannot. Any of these oil companies, if they do it fracking, sorry, that's too bad. We apologize. But there has been all kinds of settlements where these people, won against these companies because of the nightmare that these families have gone through because these companies ruin their land and ruin their lives pretty much. They're farming and stuff like that. People out there in South Dakota, North Dakota, Texas, this shit's real. It's a real problem. One other fact I read, because I did, I don't try to be biased. I try to read as much stuff as possible. There's a lady that I was reading an article about, and she seemed like she was more pro fracking than anti fracking. And what she was saying is, in Pennsylvania, they did a test, and they monitored 200 wells, and water wells, and they said only like one or two out of the 200 that they monitored were contaminated. So, which is good, that's really good, but there shouldn't be any. We have to get to none. There should be no contamination. We have to do it so it's clean. That's another thing is, what I was talking about is these poison injection wells that they take all these chemicals and they shoot them into the ground really deep and they, cover them up and leave them there. Out in where we're from, in Ohio, northern Ohio, there's a town, of Clyde, Ohio, which is, 10 minutes west, and they've had all kinds of studies being done, and there's all these young kids with brain tumors and stuff, and they call it the cancer cluster, and they don't understand why these kids are getting cancer. If they're drinking, is it in their water? Is it something they're eating? There's something, because there's got to, I think there's like 20 kids or something like that, and it might even be more than that in these small surrounding towns of Clyde and like the, their countryside or rural area. But they don't understand. They have no idea. They have all kinds of scientists. They're doing all these documentaries on it. They call it the cancer cluster. Well, there's a chemical plant that's out there, out in rural Clyde area, and for the longest time, that's what they were doing. They were using a poison injection well. They were shooting all their chemicals deep, deep, deep down into the ground, and they're still down there. The EPA back then, the EPA didn't rule against that. People were allowed to do that. Businesses were allowed to do that. Nowadays, it's crazy. But, I truly think that might have something to do with why these kids were getting sick and why, something's going on. And like I said, you can only bury something for so long. This earth has a way of digging up the truth. And I think that's really what's going. One other thing though with fracking that you have to say it's a boom right now. There's lots of jobs, lots and lots of jobs, that are springing up all over the place, giving people that can't work, work, and they're paying them very, very good. These people are making great money. But one of the cities that I was looking at is this Williston, North Dakota. And what they have out there is they have these man camps. And I mean, they have so many people. And they were saying in 5 years they have 2 to 3 times more of a population than they did because of this oil boom and this fracking out there. All these people are going out there. And the thing is that you get out there and everybody's living in some of these man camps, they're 8 by 12 rooms. You just got a bed and a desk, and you're stuffed in there, and they, it's just like a little dorm room, and it's all you do is work. They're working. They got these dudes working 12 to 14 hour days, 7 days a week. That's all you do is work, but you're just stacking money. But they have all these trailers that they pull out there, and they'll have 4 or 5 people living in one of these little trailers, just these guys, and that's all they do is just take shifts and work. And if that's what someone wants to do, then hell yeah, we need to be doing that. But I just think, that's a lot of jobs and that's a lot of money. But they're talking this town is it's just, that to be, if you would have lived there before the fracking started, and to live and see what it's like now, to your town to expand by 2 or 3 times the population in 5 years, that's pretty nuts. And they said, they're talking about the bathrooms, all the bathrooms they have inside these stores, or gas stations and food places. They said they close them. They close them so that they lock them. They don't let people guests use their bathrooms because people are living in their cars, living in their vans, living in an RV. They don't have enough room. They don't have any housing for these people. And, people are to take baths and stuff. They take a sponge and go into a bathroom and clean themselves off. It's happening so much that they can't even let people use their bathrooms. They said, they don't have enough beds. The population's growing too fast, and they can't keep up with it. They're saying that Walmart, if you start working in Walmart, fucking day shift, they start you at $17 an hour. And if you want to work night shift, 19 to 20 hours. 19 to $20 an hour if you want to work the night shift at Walmart, because that's everything that they pay is it's just fucking phenomenal, So, and they were saying Pizza Hut and that was paying, their fast foods and stuff. They're paying $15 an hour easily. So it's really interesting, man, because it's just, as they said, everyone's hiring. There's not enough people because everything's in such demand. And one of the things I was reading is they said that Pizza Hut they brought trailers there for their employees to sleep in because they had employees and they didn't have anywhere to live. They were living in their cars and stuff because they're just not. If you take a job there, you have to make sure that that your job is going to give you lodging too, because if you'd be hoping that you're getting an 8 by 12 room. If not, you're sleeping in your car trying to survive. That's just absolutely crazy, man. It really trips me out, man, that this is all going on, But like I said, there's jobs there, but they're also, their jails are full because it's a smaller town. They don't have, they can't deal with that population. It just sounds like it's fucking crazy out there. Like super nuts. And I just think in the long run, it's not a good thing. Yes, it's helping us. It's putting men to work, and that's great. And we do need to get that shale gas. I think that's a great idea. It's a new step in the right direction. We're using our own natural resources. We're not depending on another country. We're not having to buy things. We're doing it with technology that we've made and learned. But I think that there's got to be a better way to do it. I think that, like I said, there's got to be an alternative. You monitored 200 wells and only one or two of them were contaminated. Well, we have to get to know wells are contaminated, or we can't be doing it. You can't be. And what I was reading, this expert, he's an expert in the mechanicals of fracking. He's one of the ones, he engineered these machines and stuff, how to do it. But he's not even all for it. He thinks that there's, a lot more negative to it than positive, and he thinks that certain things need to be done. But that's what he said is, if each well that's put in, or each well is dug and started, and fracking is started, causes one problem, that's not so bad right now. But after 10 years, if they're planning on putting, what did I say, 2,000 to 3,000 wells in a year, they're going to put 2,000 or 3,000 a year for 30 years just in Pennsylvania. After 10 years, what the fuck's going to, how many problems is it going to be? And that's where it gets really scary. It gets real serious. I can't imagine, moving somewhere and having all this property and land and thinking, the American dream. You got a farm and stuff, and these fuckers come in and start drilling shit into the ground and fucking shit up, and your livestock starts not eating right, and your water people are getting sick because they're drinking the water and something's not right. And they eventually tell you can't drink the water anymore, and you have to dig a new well. This is the shit that's happening to people. And I just think there's got to be some kind of alternative way to figure this out instead of shooting chemicals into the ground. Does that make sense? Mother Nature's a funny thing, man. And when it's like you don't want to poke the bear. If you're going to poke the bear once, don't do it a bunch of times, because problems will arise, and they already are. And that's the thing. Maybe it is only few people right now, but the rate that it's growing and the rate that they're doing this, that's where the problem comes. Because every year it's going to get more and more and more. They're trying to do more. They're trying to push it in Ohio right now. Ohio actually passed some laws to try to restrict it as much as possible. But they're going to keep pushing for it. They're going to keep trying. They got big plans that they want to do with this shit. And I just, it's not healthy. It's, I truly believe that they have so much, these oil executives, these oil companies, you see these things that I've seen them on TV a lot about fracking. They don't call it fracking or whatever, they are very professional about it, how they approach it, and they have, we're using our own natural resources now, and it's all, homegrown, this, and blah, 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 and they make it look good, and that they're taking care of people, and blah, blah. But realistically, they have the money to do and get people to say pretty much whatever they want them to say. And I think if you really, like I said, do the fact checks yourself. Start reading some information. And I'm going to tell you, it's a lot more negative than it is positive. And of course, we have to figure out new alternatives for power and for natural resources. We have to. We're getting the solar power and the, kinds of diffusions for water. And now we're having cars that can, when they intake air, polluted air, the outtake is clean air, and like polluted cities like LA, that, cars. And they have in Beijing, the mayor of Beijing just came out and said that the city's uninhabitable, that there's so much pollution and toxins in the air. They all wear masks and stuff. You can't even see the sun. There's such a smog in the city because there's so many people. He said his city's uninhabitable, that the poison and toxin levels are too high. So what do? One of the biggest cities on the earth is saying that their air is poison. That's a serious problem. We got to come up with ways to clean that air because we're ruining this place. Yes, we have to get gas and we have to have natural resources and people got to get jobs and we got to keep moving in the right direction. But destroying the earth has to stop. And I know, you want to say that's tree hugging, hippie shit, whatever. I'm not a hippie. I'm not a tree hugger. I like to think myself as pretty clear-minded dude that, like I said, facts and statistics speak to me. Bullshit doesn't. And, if it smells like a turd, it's usually a turd. That's how it works. I just think we're cutting the forest down at an alarming rate. We're, poisoning ourselves, poisoning our air, poisoning the ground. Every day this goes on. And it's been, you want to say it's been going on for a long time. But the way, like I said, the wells, as many wells that they're planning on putting in and have been putting in the last couple of years, and I went by reading all this research that I read, and their plans for the future, it's kind of scary. It's kind of scaring me. I want my kids to be able to grow up and not have to wear a mask on their face, or, that's a real fear that I have, that down the road, my kids or my kids' kids are gonna not be able to take for granted the things I take for granted, take a good deep breath of fresh air, or, go to the beach or go to the Great Lakes, because, you take these things for granted that you see every day. Growing up around Cedar Point, I never thought it was anything special. And then as you travel and you talk to people and stuff, they say, oh, that's the best music park in the world. You live there? It's like, yeah, never really thought it was anything great. You just take things for granted that you have. Clean drinking water. We all have clean drinking water. You think of these people in Africa and stuff, they don't even have, they don't even know how they're going to get a meal. They don't know how they're going to get clean water. They just drink dirty water full of parasites because they have to drink something, But just our water that we have, that you pour out of the faucet and you drink, we take that for granted. And these people that are living out there, out west and stuff, that have been contaminated by the fracking and that kind of stuff going on, their water's ruined now, and their land's ruined now, and they took their stuff for granted too. And that's what I'm trying to say is, in a snap of your fingers, that shit can change. It could be gone. You know, the thing that your farmland that you were farming on, it could be gone. You know, where you hunt maybe. You know, this woods that you always have hunted in or whatever, and you killed all your big bucks and your deer there, gone. You know, we take these things for granted because we don't have to worry about them. But I'm telling you right now, the next 10 to 20 years, you're going to start, those things that you take for granted, it's going to start getting scary because we're going to start losing things. And, you know, unless something's done, the pollution is at an all-time high. And these doing things like shooting chemicals in the ground to get natural gas out of it just seems like that is not the perfect solution. There's got to be some other way to do it. And, you know, am I a geologist? No. Am I a scientist? No. Am I even very smart? No. Not really. I'm just a normal guy that likes to ask fucking questions. And I like to, you know, learn myself. I like to teach myself. And when I'm wrong, I like to be told that I'm wrong. So, I think I got a little fired up about that, and I think I ran it on long enough about fracking. And, I mean, realistically, I could do a 3-hour show about this shit. I mean, this stuff that I looked up, I mean, that was a couple hours of just scowling and reading and stuff like that, you know, but it all goes back to, and, you know, if anybody has any questions, you could put them up in the chat box, or you could call, and I can get you on the speakerphone, 678-209-6564. You know, when it goes back to who pioneered fracking, who made it this big, you know, it's money. It all comes to money. That's why there's so much money involved into it. That's why it's big, but Halliburton is behind it. So it's like, you know, if there's, well, I gotta say Monsanto's is pretty evil too, but if there's one evil ass corporation, you know, in like the old cartoons where they just had like the evil, you know, the evil guy in the chair that ran the evil organization. It's like Halliburton. That name comes out so much, and it's really, it's just really fucking, it's just eerie, you know. It's like you find these like scary things that, you know, and with the fracking, I think people are probably split 50-50. Some people are going to say, well, yeah, you know, with any, and I agree with this 100%, with any time we're trying to extract natural gases or natural resources or coal, or anytime we're extracting anything like that, there's going to be fallout. There's going to be problems that are caused from it. You know, that's going to happen. That's normal. But like I said, I think getting that percentage to as close to zero as possible is super important. But I can't deny that there's always going to be negative things that comes with extracting, you know, cutting down trees for paper, you know, and I think science is such a fucking cool thing. You know, science is so fucking cool. The things that they're doing and able to do. I mean, they could clone a person if they wanted to. They can, you know, grow a body, an ear or something on a mouse, or grow body parts or something like that. You know, they can. It's really crazy. It's stuff we used to watch in sci-fi movies are becoming a reality with holograms and shit like that. And but there's some things with science that I think it's eerie and it's scary, and we shouldn't mess with it. You know, just in being a part of a home inspector, you know, they're saying that the wood that we use now in construction doesn't hold up. It could be the same kind of tree, the same kind of lumber, but it's not holding up like it did years ago. Well, the reason that is because they're what's the word I'm looking for? Scientifically constructing or scientifically engineering these trees. So they plant these seeds and these trees that they engineered that grow, in 5 years they grow a full fucking tree instead of, it used to be 20 years that took to grow that same tree, or 30 years to grow that same tree. Now they can grow it in half the time, a fourth of the time. But guess what? Yeah, it looks the same. Yeah, it feels the same. But guess what? When it's put up against the elements, it doesn't last like that original tree did. Yeah, we can copy it, but it's not the same. You understand what I'm saying? And I just think that certain things like that is not a good idea. Yeah, smoke and mirrors, it looks the same and it feels the same and everything seems the same, but it's not the same not the same material. So I just think, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that will not agree with this, and they'll say, fracking, there's so many benefits and there's so many good things, but I have felt this way for a while that I think it's more negative than positive. And this town, is it Billings, or what was the name of that town? There was all kinds of stuff I was finding out about this town, just this Willingston, North Dakota. The stuff, I could have probably I could have spent a day just reading about this town. It just sounds nuts that, what's going on there. They said, all these dudes are just crammed. They're coming from all over to try to get jobs. They're sleeping in their cars. Crime's up, drugs are up. There's more meth busts than ever. Prostitution's up, and strippers. And it just sounds like, yeah, the city's booming. There's a lot more money. They said to buy a house, the average house is $300. It's a small town in North Dakota. $300,000 is a going rate for most houses, because you can't even buy a house because there's too many people there. So everything's jacked up and inflated. Yeah, you can make fucking, it's oil money. So everybody's making bank, but it's, how long can that go on for? Eventually those wells are going to dry up. Then what happens? All those people go back to where they came from, and the city just withers to fucking nothing. There's going to be an impact. That shit doesn't. We're not talking about something that's unlimited supply. We're talking about something that once the job's done and it's all gone, yeah, it may take 30 years, 20 years, but once it's dried up, guess what? Money's dried up too. You have all these people making $20 an hour living in a little town in North Dakota. Fucking, the money, the oil, and the fracking goes away. What happens to the community? What happens to the economy? That's what I think. So, looks like I have a decent amount of viewers tonight. Nobody really being very talkative, though. I guess I was kind of fucking ranting like a motherfucker, but if you do, also, I want to say, if you do have, questions or anything like that, you can, if you had any questions about this show, you can put them on the Facebook page or put them on the comments on this episode, and it will, I'll answer them next. So, if you didn't get something and there was something that you wanted me to talk about, you can say something and then I'll look at it next time, and you can, you can get them answered live. So, with that being said, I think it's about 9 o'clock. I'm going to end it so I can go watch my Walking Dead, but, really appreciate, all the love, especially when I had Jake on the other night. We got like over 100 views in the first 24 hours of that episode. So, I've almost keep listening to this stuff, keep sharing this, tell your friends about it, tell them to check it out. Hope it is still entertaining for you, because it's still entertaining for me. I'm almost hit 3,000 plays, and like I said, I've been doing this for It's been a little over a year, but this is only, I took a big break. This is the 32nd episode. This is RowdCAST 32. And so I appreciate everybody that's been listening since the beginning. If you're new, appreciate you too. With that being said, another Sunday Nights in the books. I will be back next Sunday. My guest will be Joe Burkhart. He is he's an interesting character, to say the least. He's a business owner. He's a hard-working dude. He's worked in, he's worked for the banking industry. He's worked for housing industry, real estate transactions. He's a move maker. He gets things done, and we should have a pretty interesting episode. He's one of my best friends. I grew up with him. And like I said, interesting dude. So that will be next Sunday. After that, I will be gone for the weekend, heading to Florida. But hopefully we'll squeeze one in before I leave. So it may not be on Sunday, but sometime in that week we'll get one for you. So I'm going to keep producing these fucking things. Like I said, keep sharing it, keep spreading the love, and be good to one another, You only got one life, and we only got one earth that we live on. So take care of each other and take care of the planet. On that note, it's another Sunday Night in the books. I'm Roddy Radloff, and I am out of here. Peace.